Time is not running out, it is calling out. The question is not, where did July go? The question is, did you go with it, consciously? As we stand at the edge of another month, many will shrug, move forward and forget. But those who are awake know this is no ordinary ending. It is a planned moment, a designed turning point. Not for the world, but for you. Most people live by the clock, but never realize the clock is asking them a question. Are you where you said you would be? You see, July's end was never just about dates or deadlines. It's an alarm, a soft but urgent signal from life itself, nudging you to pause, reflect, and realign before the year completes its cycle without your growth catching up. Most people view the end of July as just another date on the calendar, a reminder that summer is halfway gone or that the year is slipping by. But this perception is shallow, merely skimming the surface of time's deeper purpose. The reality is that what seems like an end is often an illusion. In truth, the end of July, or any marked point in time, is a carefully designed check. It exists not to close things off, but to open something inside of us. A window for reflection, a pause for realignment, a nudge to notice where we are in the journey of our own becoming. When we think of time, we often visualize it in straight lines. One month follows another, one season melts into the next. But this is not how life works. Life flows in cycles. Nature teaches us through its seasons: growth, bloom, harvest, decay, rest, and growth again. If we fail to recognize that we too are part of this cycle, we become disconnected. We begin to live only by the expectations of a calendar or the obligations of a routine. We miss the meaning that each cycle carries. And July's end is one such moment with meaning embedded deeply beneath its surface. This so-called ending is not random. It is placed by a deeper intelligence, call it nature, rhythm, the divine pattern of the universe. Just like the setting sun marks the beginning of the night, the end of July marks a hidden opportunity. But that opportunity can only be seen by those who have developed the eyes to look inward, not just outward. It is not an external deadline. It is an internal check-in. It's a moment to ask, am I where I said I would be at the start of the year? Have I kept the promises I made to myself? Or have I drifted, distracted by the noise and pace of everyday life? If you look closely, you see that time often gives you such signals. These markers are not punishments for your failures. They are gentle lanterns placed along the dark path of life to help you remember why you started walking it in the first place. July's end is a lantern, and if you simply keep walking without pausing to look at its light, you might reach December with a feeling of having run, but not moved. In the rush of modern life, where speed is glorified and stillness is mistaken for laziness, it's easy to miss the spiritual significance of these ends. But to the disciplined mind, the aware spirit, the one who listens, July's end is not about lost time. It is about found awareness. When you understand this, you stop fearing the end of months, the turning of pages, or the passing of seasons. Instead, you begin to use them. You begin to meet them with presence and purpose. You were never meant to drift from January to December on autopilot. The seasons of your life are not background music. They are lessons, perfectly timed. And if July's end appears now, it is because there is something inside you that must be awakened now. Not next week, not in the comfort of someday. The checkpoint has appeared. The moment is here. It is not random. It is not accidental. It is a mirror reflecting back your discipline, your direction, and your inner state. Everything in life moves through cycles. These cycles are not random. They are structured, rhythmic, and deeply purposeful. Just like the moon moves through phases, the tides rise and fall, the seasons shift from bloom to rest. We too are governed by cycles, internally and externally. When one begins to recognize this truth, life no longer feels chaotic or rushed. Instead, it reveals a kind of hidden choreography where each phase has its own wisdom, its own assignment, and its own necessary energy. July's end is not just the finishing of a month, it's the closing of a mini cycle within a much larger pattern. The year itself is a cycle broken into 4 quarters, each holding a specific emotional and energetic tone. The first quarter is filled with the fire of beginnings, resolutions, ambitions, visions. The second quarter brings the test. Can you sustain your intention through obstacles, through distractions, through the slow days when motivation fades? And by the time July arrives, you're at the bridge between what was and what still could be. This moment requires awareness, because if you're unconscious, July's end simply passes. You shrug, you say, time is flying, and you keep moving. But if you're conscious, you realize this is the place to stop and ask yourself, where am I in the cycle? Not just the calendar cycle, but the personal one. The emotional, spiritual, mental cycle you're currently in. Am I in a time of sowing or harvesting? Is this a season of action or of reflection? Am I pushing forward or am I being called to return inward and re-establish balance? Ignoring the cycle is what leads to burnout. It's what causes people to fall into despair, anxiety, or confusion, because they keep forcing themselves to perform at a high level when their cycle is asking them to pause, to listen, to nourish. In the same way that you wouldn't plant seeds in winter, you must understand when it is time to act and when it is time to observe. This wisdom doesn't come from books. It comes from paying attention to your own rhythm. And this is where discipline becomes essential. Discipline is not about force. It is about alignment. A disciplined person knows what part of the cycle they're in and responds accordingly. July's end, for instance, might be the perfect time to pull back, evaluate, and remove the unnecessary noise that has crept in during the earlier months. It may be the time to reconnect with the inner voice that got drowned out in the busyness of doing. Or, for some, it may be a time to reignite the fire, to remember what they committed to and take decisive action now that the distractions of the first half are behind them. Although everyone's cycle is different, but the principle remains the same. Recognize it, respect it, work with it, not against it. You are not designed to sprint non-stop. Nature does not move that way. Even the sun sets. Even the strongest tree has its shedding leaves. What makes you think your life is supposed to be linear, always up, always productive, always clear? When you understand the truth of cycles, you become wiser. You stop fighting time and start cooperating with it. You stop rushing and start listening. You begin to trust that every phase has a reason. And that includes the phase you're in right now, whether it feels active or quiet, bright or uncertain. It is necessary. It is part of your unfolding. Time is not just a measurement, it's a messenger. Every moment, every date, every shift in season carries within it a message. Not always loud or obvious, but always present. And the end of July is no exception. What appears as just another transition between months is, in truth, a whisper from time itself, offering a message to those who are willing to listen. But the problem is that most people are too distracted to hear it. This world is filled with noise. Notifications, schedules, tasks, conversations, entertainment, so much movement, but very little presence. We keep going without ever stopping to ask, what is this moment trying to tell me? And so, the messages of time go unheard, but they do not stop coming. Time, like a wise teacher, continues to present the same lesson until the student is ready to receive it. Journey's end is one of these subtle messengers. If you slow down and observe, it begins to reveal something more than just heat or holidays. It reflects back your inner state. It asks questions that no calendar reminder can prompt. Are you aligned with the direction you set at the start of the year? Are your actions still rooted in intention, or have they become automatic and reactionary? What must be released before the next season arrives? These are not questions that come from outside. They arise from within, but only when silence makes room for them. Time communicates through rhythm, through repetition. It mirrors what is happening inside of you by presenting patterns outside of you. The reason you may feel anxious as the month ends or reflective as the seasons change isn't just emotional. It's spiritual. It's life signaling to you that there is something to acknowledge. Maybe a lesson you've been avoiding, a habit you've ignored, a goal you've delayed, a fear you've numbed. And now, here comes the end of July, not to punish you, but to offer yet another opportunity to wake up. What many call pressure is often just clarity trying to get your attention. And the only reason it feels heavy is because you've been pretending not to see it. But the message remains, life does not shout. It repeats. It nudges. And when you don't listen long enough, it pushes. But even then, the push is not cruel. It is corrective. To receive the messages hidden in time, you must practice stillness. Stillness is not just sitting in silence, it is learning how to quiet the inner commentary, to listen without needing to analyze, to feel without needing to judge. When you sit with the energy of this moment, the transition, the in-between space, you begin to hear more. Not voices, not words, but realizations. A sudden knowing, a shift in your internal compass. You understand what must change, not because someone told you, but because the time itself showed you. That is the power of presence. It allows you to interpret the signs life constantly sends. It sharpens your perception. So the same day everyone else overlooks becomes your moment of transformation. And all of this begins with honoring the subtle messages wrapped inside ordinary moments. The greatest tragedy is not that people fail to grow. It's that they never notice the signs meant to awaken them. Life is constantly speaking, through events, through encounters, through time itself. But most people are asleep, not in the physical sense, but spiritually. They move through their days focused only on tasks, survival, entertainment, and repetition. And in that constant motion, they miss the moments that were placed specifically to guide them back to themselves. July's end is one of those moments, a whisper from life asking, are you still on the path? Or have you wandered without knowing it? We are trained to look outside for meaning. School teaches us to memorize. Society teaches us to chase. Technology teaches us to scroll. But very little in modern life teaches us how to notice. True noticing is not just about the five senses. It is a deeper seeing, an inner alertness that perceives not just what is happening, but why it is happening. And this awareness cannot exist in a scattered mind. It requires presence, and presence requires discipline. Most people pass through time with their eyes open, but their awareness shut. They reach the end of the month and say things like, time flies, or another month gone, without asking, what did this month bring to me? What did it try to teach me? Where did I resist growth and where did I lean into it? These questions are not for philosophers. They are for anyone who wants to live intentionally. Because if you cannot interpret your own life, you become a victim to it. And July becomes just another missed signal. Missing the signs does not mean life stops guiding you, but the longer you ignore the signals, the harder they become to read. What once was a whisper becomes a knock, and what was once a knock becomes a storm. Awareness is your protection. It allows you to detect imbalances while they are still small. It lets you correct course while the path is still clear. When you're awake, time works with you. When you're asleep, time slips past you. And with it, opportunities. This unconscious living is not because people lack intelligence. It's because they've forgotten how to pause. We are a generation addicted to momentum. We confuse movement with meaning. But when you are always rushing, you miss the subtle. And in life, the subtle is often the sacred. The turning of a leaf, the stillness in a room, the quiet feeling that something inside is out of alignment, these are the sacred signals that awaken you to your next step. But they only appear in silence, in space, in slowness. July's end is not loud. It does not demand your attention. It simply arrives, softly, silently, and then it leaves. But for the few who are awake, it offers an invitation to step out of autopilot and back into awareness, to reflect on whether your days are being lived with intention or with repetition, to decide if the version of yourself you've been carrying through the year is the one you still choose to be. This is why awareness is not optional, it is foundational. Without it, even the most disciplined life becomes hollow. You can wake up early, meditate, train, work hard, and still be lost if you're not awake to yourself. You must learn to become your own observer. Watch your thoughts. Watch your choices. Watch how you react when time tells you another month is ending. Are you becoming who you promised yourself you'd be? When you live with awareness, each day becomes a lesson. Each ending becomes a new beginning. And each moment, even something as simple as the last day of July, becomes an instrument of transformation. So don't miss the sign. Don't sleep through your own awakening. The message is already here. The question is, are you still too distracted to hear it? There is a belief that life is random, that events unfold by accident and that time simply moves forward without order or design. But this is not the truth seen by those who live with clarity. When your mind becomes still and your awareness sharpens, you begin to see that there is a deeper intelligence operating beneath the surface of daily life. This intelligence is not bound by human logic or limited by emotion. It works through rhythm, through alignment, through precision. Everything in life, every season, every meeting, every delay, every breakthrough is part of a greater unfolding, and the end of July is not outside this plan. It is woven into it. Most people live as if they are separate from the universe, as if life is happening to them, as if time is something they must race against or control. But this is a misunderstanding. You are not separate from life, you are an expression of it. And just like the sun rises without instruction and the river flows without permission, your life too has a path that is revealed moment by moment, not all at once. But this path cannot be understood by rushing. It must be listened into. That is where stillness becomes powerful, not as an escape from life, but as the space in which life reveals itself to you. In silence, you begin to feel it. There is a reason you are where you are right now, not by mistake, not by coincidence. Whether you feel behind, ahead, stuck, or inspired, there is something perfectly designed about this point in your journey. The end of July is not merely a calendar transition. It is a symbolic threshold. The first half of the year has passed. It brought experiences, emotions, progress, distractions, lessons. Now, the second half waits, but not in blindness. It waits in response to how you show up right now. That is the plan. You are not a passive traveler in time. You are a co-creator. How you meet this moment will determine what the next one brings. This is not superstition. It is pattern. It is the same pattern nature has followed for thousands of years. Preparation brings harvest. Intention brings growth. Awareness brings clarity. And resistance brings repetition. If you keep avoiding the lessons of the present moment, life will simply repeat them until you learn. That is how the plan works. Not as punishment, but as correction. The end of July may be quiet, but it is not empty. It is filled with possibility. It is filled with energy. It is the ideal time to stop and ask, what is life trying to show me now? Not yesterday, not last year, not someday. Now. This is the spiritual practice. To stop chasing the future and begin engaging fully with the wisdom of the moment. You don't need to know everything about where you are going. You only need to understand what this moment is asking from you. And usually, it is not more effort, it is more awareness. It is not louder action, it is deeper listening. That is how alignment works. When you are in tune with the rhythm of time, life feels less like resistance and more like flow. You move with less effort, but more impact. You stop reacting and you begin responding with purpose. There is a plan, but the plan does not live in spreadsheets or in dreams alone. It lives in your day-to-day awareness. It lives in how you treat the small things. It lives in whether or not you honor the transitions, like this one, the end of July, as sacred moments for redirection. The plan is already in motion. The question is not whether it exists. The question is, are you willing to participate in it? Fully awake, fully present, and fully aligned. We live in a world obsessed with planning. New goals, fresh strategies, updated calendars, endless checklists. We believe that if we can just plan well enough, we can avoid pain, find success, and stay ahead of time. But there comes a moment when you must realize it is not more planning that you need, it is more presence. Planning without presence becomes pressure. But presence transforms even the smallest action into a conscious and effective step forward. This is the hidden wisdom that time teaches us when we slow down and truly listen. At the end of July, many people feel an impulse to reset. They begin to look toward the second half of the year with the desire to regain control, to revise goals that faded in the noise of earlier months. And while intention is important, it can become meaningless if it's not rooted in now. Most people want to change everything at once. They believe that transformation will come through a sudden shift in their external world, but real change, sustainable change, does not come from making louder promises. It comes from sharpening your awareness in the present moment. Presence is not passive. It is one of the most active and powerful forces you can cultivate. When you are present, your energy is not scattered. Your thoughts are not diluted by regret of the past or anxiety about the future. You are fully engaged with what is in front of you. And from this state, every decision you make, every word you speak, every step you take carries more weight. It becomes meaningful, not because it is dramatic, but because it is intentional. Without presence, even the best plan is wasted. You can have the clearest goals, but if your attention is always somewhere else, the steps you take will feel empty. You may get results, but you will not grow. And growth is not a side effect of success, it is the essence of it. Life does not respond to how loudly you wish, it responds to how deeply you see. And you can only see deeply when you are present. The irony is that the more present you become, the less you feel the need to control everything. You begin to realize that clarity doesn't always come from adding more, it often comes from subtracting, removing distractions, releasing false urgency, letting go of outdated ambitions. Presence clears the fog. It doesn't force answers, it allows them to emerge. This is the perfect lesson of July's end. You don't need to rush into the next half of the year with more pressure. You need to enter it with more awareness. Ask yourself, how present have I been so far this year? When I worked, was I really there? When I rested, was I fully at ease? When I spoke to others, was I listening? Or was I simply reacting, repeating, performing? These questions matter more than new goals because they reveal the quality of your living. The future you want is not hiding behind some distant milestone. It is hiding behind your ability to meet this moment fully. No delay, no escape, just here, now. Presence gives you back your power. It allows you to be deliberate, not just driven. It teaches you that you don't have to rush to be effective. You simply have to be awake. When you are present, the second half of the year doesn't have to be filled with struggle or stress. It can be filled with flow, awareness, and peace. And from that place, you don't just make progress, you transform. Because now, you are no longer fighting time, you are moving with it. As a conscious participant in the rhythm of your own unfolding. The second half of your year doesn't need new promises. It needs a new presence. Stop running. Stop noticing. Because the plan has already begun. Now you must align with it.